just making sure they are excited, making sure they are involved and really, working on themselves. It's all about student development. That's what I'm doing right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Leslie Samarin. This is me at my stepson's wedding a couple of years ago. His name is Louis, his lovely bride Carly, and my sweet, amazing husband Lou. So together we make up the little chorus Samara family. And we are really thrilled to be able to be here with you all today and talk about emotional intelligence. And some of you may have heard that term, emotional intelligence. The idea of more than just one intelligence has been around since 1975. A gentleman named Howard Gardner produced the idea of there's not just one intelligence, there are actually several kinds of intelligence. And you all probably can think about this. Do you know somebody who just automatically has the right word? Or someone who is so gifted musically, how do they play that instrument that well? Or maybe they're really great at math. Maybe you're really great at math. Maybe you have an ability to create great interpersonal relationships. Well, these are different types of intelligences. And as you can see up on the screen here, this is an example of the different types of intelligences that Howard Gardner introduced. And this opened the way about how we define the word intelligence because it goes beyond our IQ. And a gentleman named Daniel Goleman developed further this idea, and he labeled it emotional intelligence in 1995. He did extensive research, speaking all over the globe on this. It was really, he is really the father of emotional intelligence. So, how do we define intelligence? If you take a look at the term on the screen, it's going to tell you intelligence means inter, and légère, which means to choose or select. So intelligence is to choose the better option. So this is a bunch of Latin in between, but we're really talking about how do I make the better choice? So if you think about the choices that you make every day, you go to the grocery store, you go to the shampoo aisle, you try and pick which shampoo am I going to choose? You read, you study, you compare and contrast, you determine against the needs of your own hair, and then you buy your shampoo. So you're actually sifting between all of these different facts to come up with a choice. So it is interesting to me, and maybe to you too, that you can be presented with a lot of facts about another person and make the wrong choice in how to interact with them. So, as leaders, and I believe most of you are business leaders, you're faced with choices, many choices every day, how you interact with your employees, your vendors, your bosses, etc. And it's being able to be making the right choice because emotions impact our ability to choose the correct way to express this, right? So let's see if we can bring up a picture of a starry sky. And I want you to take a look at this starry sky. You can see the stars, right? They're so beautiful, they twinkle. There's millions and millions and countless stars in the sky. And it's amazing, right? But then what happens when the sun comes up in the morning? What happens to the stars? All of a sudden, when the sun comes up, stars disappear. But do they? The stars are there. We just can't see them because we're being blinded to the rest of the stars because of the biggest star closest to our system, which is the planet. And that's kind of like our emotions, because sometimes we just get so overwhelmed and we get blinded by a particular emotion that we lose our perspective to see all the other choices of emotions around us. So think about that as you go into this session. How do you choose correctly in an environment where we are emotionally charged. And as business leaders, it is going to happen. If it hasn't happened already, be prepared, it will. In the corporate world, EQ is really critical. Your IQ and how smart you are can get you hired, but it's your EQ that will get you promoted. So, how well are you moving into these different circumstances with your emotions in check, being emotionally aware of the people that are around you? So, what's interesting is that Daniel Goleman, the gentleman who developed this idea of emotional intelligence, found that 85% of what makes a leader a top leader is rooted in their emotional intelligence. And only 15% is related to their IQ. So it matters. IQ gets you there, EQ keeps you there. I'll tell you real quick. In today's day and age, especially in corporate America, a lot of corporations are assessing performance beyond just the tasks that they have to do. They are looking at the person's ability to lead relationships, developing those relationships, etc. And I used to work at L'Oreal. I was a head of training and education and artistry for a division of L'Oreal. And without naming names, we had this person who was the head of his function and overall, over the entire group. And he was a nightmare. I will tell you this. He was definitely highly intelligent, very smart, but his emotional intelligence was horrible. He had to be the smartest person in the room all the time, to the extent where he would put somebody else down to make himself look smarter. Now, how emotionally intelligent is that? This man is the leader, and he's berating and belittling the people around him to make sure he looks smart. Well, you've got to think about those moments as a leader, because if you're tempted to try and put somebody in their place, it may not be the right time and the right way, and you destroy that emotional trust because we're dealing with people. So we want to be able to make sure that we're really aware of not only how we're feeling, but how other people are feeling at the same time. So this also helps protect your relationships. It gives you a strong and healthy relationships. Understand, I'm not saying that you don't have conflict. Of course you have conflict. Of course you have disagreements. But how you handle those disagreements is where your emotional intelligence comes in. You can keep your frustration, your anger, your disappointment at bay and have the conversation to help move and change things along. Relationships are one of the most important. If you don't have strong relationships, you're not going to be able to live a long life. Longevity studies prove that. So relationships are multifaceted. One of the things that we want to do is make sure that we're aware that we're able to think in times of distress. Now you can see she's wearing a mask. I know many people in China wear masks, and sometimes in the US we'll still wear masks, but that of course harkens us back to the pandemic. And that was a very big time of stress. Well, it's been 6 years since the pandemic, but now there are other kinds of stress that we face. So being aware of that and is going to be able to help us function more clearly. Now, let's take a look at this leadership EQ. This is a model that we're going to discuss today. There are many different models that you can choose from, but this one's very simple and very helpful. So you see over the top, we have 4 elements of EQ. The first 2 relate to self-awareness, what do we see in ourselves, and self-management, what we do with that self-awareness. Okay, and then the second 2 elements are others related. It's social awareness, and it's how we manage our relationships with others. So if we just take a look and click through those boxes, you'll see how it pops up, how it fills up. So when I lead with if I lead myself with what I see, that's self-awareness. If I lead myself with what I do, that's self-management. If I lead others with what I'm seeing going on with them, that's social awareness. And if I lead others with how I treat them, that is relationship management. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about self-awareness. And I'm going to ask a question. If you go on to the next slide, you're going to see something that looks like a hot button, okay? And this hot button is what triggers us. So what really makes you mad? Can you think of a time when you just get really mad? What irritates you beyond belief? Anybody out there want to just type into the chat something that irritates you? Something that makes you angry? Something that makes you really mad? I'll tell you what makes me mad while you type it into the chat. What makes me mad is when my subcontractor in some of the relationships that I have tries to upsell my client without being forthcoming about it. So they'll actually try and upsell and add more services without any mention that it's going to cost the client money. So guess what happens? I get the bill and then I have to go to the client and say, well, it's actually going to cost more money. And I don't like that because it erodes integrity and it makes me really mad. So I have to be able to control that and have a conversation with my subcontractor and explain why that is such a bad idea for all of our business strategically, because if I get angry and I just pop off, it's not going to have a long lasting result. So what we want to do is take a look at the difference between self-knowledge and self-awareness. And I didn't see, is anybody putting in there what makes them really mad? I can't read Chinese, so I'm gonna have to have some help.
所以大家可以在聊天框打一下，有什么会让我们感觉到很生气的？
My business leaders are being very shy. Oh, not telling the truth. That makes me mad. Yes. Cheating. That's horrible. Yes. You can't trust someone who cheats. So right away, those two are fantastic ideas to consider if they make us very angry. So let's take a look at this illustration from technology. So you see what's going to pop up on the screen is a hard drive. And that can be, your self-knowledge can be compared to a hard drive because it stores hundreds of applications and files. Your computer can access it anytime you need it, but you don't necessarily need to access the information that often. However, it's got the other side, which is the RAM, right? Your active memory. And RAM is what the computer has accessed and is thinking about that moment. So right now, our computers are thinking about PowerPoint and Zoom, and there are hundreds of applications and files that are on my computer. I'm just not using them right now. So the idea of self-awareness parallels that. When a person is conscious of moment by moment, awareness is perceiving, it's being conscious of your events that are happening at the time, the thoughts that are going through your head, and your emotions. And the key with self-awareness is that you are able to access the right information on how to deal with it from your hard drive. So obviously we have to know our strengths and our limits. We need to know, deeply understand our own values, our beliefs, our emotions. Do you have them written down anywhere? Do you know the impact that you have on others? Have you ever been in a conversation and you've seen a look go across someone's face or their body language shifts back? Those are clues that are telling you there's something that's not connecting, okay? So self-aware people not only know their emotions and their motivations, but they see the impact that it has on themselves and it has on somebody else. So if you think about moments when you're nervous, what happens to your heart rate? Do you begin to perspire? Do you begin to speed up in how quickly you're speaking? Things like that are being self-aware. And only until you are self-aware of those things can you change them. So you have to start with what Socrates said, which is know yourself. Do you know what's going on inside? So I'm I'm going to tell you something that's very interesting to me about the United States. In the United States, 75% of the people in the United States are overweight. 75. 72% of them think they're healthy. That is a huge disconnect in being self-aware. And they're not aware. And so all of them go on diets. 80% of the people that go on a diet in the US immediately gain that weight back when they stop. They're just absolutely not aware. There's a disconnect between what they think healthy is and what they really are. That's a pretty terrible, I think, example, but a true example of a disconnect between self-awareness and how unhealthy it is when you're not aware of what's going on. So can you grow your self-awareness? That's the big question. What am I going to do? Well, here's the thing. You can grow your self-awareness. The first thing you can do is seek feedback. And you can ask about your performance. Now, that may be talking to the person who is the head of your group and asking them, say, hey, listen, how can I be a better leader? How can I, and you can even ask that of the person that's reporting to you. I want to help you grow. And in order to do that, I need to be a better leader. How can I do that better? So this is a professional way to enter that topic into a relationship that creates trust, and it also creates interest, because especially if it's the person that's reporting to you, gosh, how good would that feel? My boss is actually asking me what they can do to help me grow in my job. When's the last time anybody ever asked you that? Think about how that would make you feel. This is being self-aware, and now you can pass that on. So you're also able to speak with candor. Now, candor is a word that means being honest, even when it hurts, not being cruel, being honest. And we can gently share how we're feeling about something. But we want to be able to speak that truth out of care and love for the other person, for the relationship, for their growth, and for your growth. So think about that for yourself. And if there's somebody that pops to mind that you want to try that with, just write their name down. Who can you be honest with? Have a conversation. I had to have an honest conversation with a client of mine. They were actually bullying one of my subcontractors. And I had to say, we can't do this anymore. You can't act like that. It doesn't work. And the cool thing was, this is what they did. They said, I'm sorry. I couldn't believe it, but they did. And they were truly apologetic. They were willing to admit that they were wrong. And you know what? I am too. And you should be too. And that's hard as a leader. But it's important that our staffs understand that we do know we make mistakes. I'm sorry are two of the most powerful words that you can ever say. Here's the secret. When you say, I'm sorry, be quiet. Have you ever heard this? I'm so sorry, but I'm so sorry, however. I'm so sorry, you, and all of a sudden, I'm sorry has lost all of its power. So don't follow up your I'm sorry with a reason for why you did what you did. Does that make sense? You kind of have to let it sit. It is uncomfortable, but it is powerful. And that's the other thing we're going to talk about is you got to leave your comfort zone. You've got to know what your limits and your strengths are, but you've got to be willing to take a calculated risk, jump off the cliff. Okay, I'm going to tell them I'm sorry. Okay, I'm going to ask them if they think what I can do better as a leader to help them grow. So this is, and you have to be able to pick yourself up when you fail. It's failing forward. It's not failing and then falling off a cliff. It's a specific risk you take. Now, this is a picture of Alyssa Geist, who is the daughter of the founder of Global Leadership Partners, bungee jumping in New Zealand. Have y'all ever bungee jumped? I might metaphorically bungee jump, but there is no way I would ever get on a bridge, a perfectly fine bridge, and jump off of it unless it were collapsing. You know what I mean? That takes a real huge risk. And it's kind of doing that. It's being able to prepare yourself. I took a leap of faith when I married my husband, Lou, 13 years ago. I was, as I'd mentioned, I was the head of a division of L'Oreal, running training, running artistry for them. And, we were going to be married, and I was working 80, 90 hours a week with a commute, all that stuff. And we just realized that this wasn't going to work. So he said to me, leave, we'll figure it out. And that was a big risk because that meant leaving my corporate job, my bonus, my benefits, all those things, and figuring out that we'll make it work. And guess what? 13 years later, I have my own company. My husband's been instrumental in making it successful and helping me. It was a calculated risk, but I had to take that risk because marrying him and having a healthy marriage was more important than climbing up that corporate ladder. And guess what? I still climbed up the corporate ladder. I just did it on the outside, not on the inside. So, how else can you improve your self-awareness? Well, there are tests you can take. There are self-awareness tests, and a lot of good options are out there. You may have heard of Enneagram or DISC or Myers-Briggs. These are all self-awareness tools. And as you can see, here's DISC, there's Myers-Briggs, there's Enneagram, all different, they measure different aspects of our personality. They're all great. Pick one. You're actually going to be given the opportunity to take a DISC assessment in preparation for EQ2. So I think you're going to be really excited about that one. The DISC profile, just as a little plug, it's my favorite one because it is the easiest one to remember. It is the easiest one to be able to apply in relationships. You'll be able to figure out who you are pretty quickly, and you'll be able to learn the clues to tell who somebody else is. And you only have to remember 4 key personality styles in order to get started. So real excited that you have that opportunity to take that DISC assessment. The other thing that you can do is just start to reflect internally. Get a journal and write down what is it that you are noticing about yourself. Write down, when do I get angry, upset? Someone's cheated. What's my reaction? How did I respond emotionally to that person? Did that move the relationship forward toward change in behavior, or did it disintegrate? So things like that, reflecting and being able to understand, are going to help you analyze what needs to change so that you are in control of what's happening. So to talk more about that idea of self-management, which comes after all this reflection, we're going to bring up Ms. Rachel.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Coming to self-management, like we talked, like Leslie put it across very, very clearly. It was so much to do with how we are working on ourselves. So she talked about self-awareness, and now it's self-management. Now, when it comes to self-management, there are basically 2 aspects of self-management that we are going to talk about. Okay. Now, if we have to ask ourselves, one aspect would be about what is really the source of our motivation. Okay. What really motivates us? What really gives us or gets us very excited? The first point we have is a person who is self-managed has a passion to achieve. Okay, we're talking about a passion to achieve. Now, self-management like we said, is someone who, you're talking about achievements. It could be as a student, it could be as a person working. It's all about how you work on yourself. Do you really have the energy to wake up in the morning and say, yes, I want to do something. I really want to achieve something. About our goals, do we have the energy? Do we have the persistence to really carry on and push ourselves? We are talking about also the ability, the drive to achieve beyond our wildest expectations. So the key word here is achieve. Okay, achievement is the key word. That is the focus. I'd like to ask each one of y'all, when was the last time you really had that drive or that desire to achieve? As a student, you would have said good grades, or as a person who's working, you would have had goals to set and you would have worked on achievement. It could be personal goals, it could be your fitness. We have so many aspects of our life where we really want to work or focus on achievement. Yeah. Now, the next thing we also see is there are basically two types of achievement, two types of when we want to, achieve something, there are two types of motivation. The first one can be an external motivation. Now, if we ask, since I'm a lecturer and I work with students and I ask them, what do you want to achieve? What is your motivation? Why do you want to take up a job? The first thing they will say, ma'am, I'll get money. I want to be rich. I want money. I want to have that status. I want to be recognized. So when we look at answers like that, we are talking about the external motivation. Okay. But sometimes when there are people who have reached their status, they've made all the money in the world, there's recognition, there's also that internal motivation, a motivation which is from a deep internal and inner desire, which we call a higher calling, which goes beyond the material self, which goes beyond the superficial part where it's money. And this is called a higher calling. Now, those who really do well in self-management are people who have this internal motivation. Now, I just want to give you an example from my life. People ask me like, why are you a lecturer? You're not paid well. It's a lot of hard work. Why do you want to take up this job? You can work, take up any other job where you can get paid for all the, organizing skills that you have. And for me, I tried it. I took up a job where I was an event manager. You make money for every project, but I was unsatisfied. I was so dissatisfied with this whole thing. I made the money, but I was not satisfied because deep inside, the internal calling or the higher calling was, am I impacting lives? Am I making a difference in the lives of students? Because when you look at students, they are bored, they're tired, they're not inspired. And I wanted to go back and inspire students. So many times we have to make a choice between the internal and the external motivation. So self-management is having that sense of deep purpose. It is also something which we have to think about. What exactly is motivating you? Is this motivation, is it external or is it internal? Okay, so I'd like you to think about, what exactly is motivating me? When I'm thinking of what job to take, when I'm thinking of, what I'm going to do with my life, when I'm thinking of my goals, let's think about what exactly is motivating me. Is it just the money, the fame, or is it something deeper? So along with self-management, it also talks about the way we express our emotions. Now, we generally spend most of our time and today most of our time will be on how we manage ourselves. Okay, if you look at these emotions, the core emotions that we have, there are so many. If I ask you how was your day, some of you said you're excited, some of you said you were happy, so we have different emotions which are built up. Some days we wake up with, I have no mood at all to do anything. Okay, so we are generally people who have mixed emotions. And some of us simply let them, we can't just let it go away. We sometimes keep it all inside, we bottle it up, and that is not really healthy. So self-management is redirecting these impulses and channelizing them in different, basically in different ways, in different directions. So what we're looking at here right now is whether it's our emotions are going happy or sad. I'd like you to look at this picture. All of us know who that is, the famous footballer.
He is not Messi.
It's not Messi. Everyone knows Messi.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So we've got an answer there. So we've got Ronaldo, Cristiano Ronaldo. And if you look at Ronaldo's story, at 33 years, he was the first player in the Champions League era. And he won a trophy 5 times. You can see his fingers going up. He won the trophy 5 times, and he's known as the greatest players of all time. Now, if you look at it, along with his winning on the right side, when we see the two pictures, the umpire is sending him out. You can see him pushing the umpire. So those are two instances. I don't know if you recall those instances. In 2017, he got 2 yellow cards and he was even dismissed from the game. In his anger, he pushed the referee. Okay. Here we are talking about self-management, and on the other side, Ronaldo, though he was successful as a player, he was banned for 5 matches and he was fined more than 5,000 euros. So when we're talking about self-management, it's how we handle ourselves, especially during stress. Okay. And even when we're talking about self-management, are we thinking about what are the consequences if I express myself, if I get angry, and if I say the wrong things, what is going to happen? So we have, when we talk about this particular picture here, I don't know if you know this person, this famous person, anyone knows who this person is? A very impressive person who was in jail for 27 long years, a very sad story. And from the prison, he went on to presidency, he became a president. Yes, Nelson Mandela. He could have just spent all his time becoming bitter. He could have spent all his time thinking of how to take revenge when he becomes the president. But what he did was he worked on his emotions. He controlled his emotions. And it was the power that comes. Okay. Here we see if he had lost control of his emotions, the result would have been devastating. He was also recognized for this, and he won the Peace Prize because of the choices that he made. He must have wrestled with internal feelings, but, that is what got him there, where he was someone who was not natural. He had so much control. Okay. Yes, President of South Africa. Okay, now coming to different emotional situations. I just want you to think of some situations that you go through. Did any of y'all go through an emotional situation today? Did we have to, how many of us reacted and how many of us responded to a situation? When we have any stimuli, when we have any event that can get us upset, okay, that is the moment of truth where we have to choose, do I react or do I respond? When you react, it leads to, or it creates a lot of negative responses. But when you respond, it creates a lot of positive responses. Think of, like, for us in Bangalore, I don't know how it is for you in China, but in Bangalore, the biggest struggle is our traffic. You step out on the roads, you want to reach your office, or your workplace on time, and you're there handling traffic. And you get angry, you get upset because someone cuts in the line and you just want to scream, you want to react, you want to shout at them. But if we react, he's going to shout back, and it's going to end up with a lot more confusion. People are going to get out of their cars. It's going to cause chaos. But if we keep our cool, if we decide we're going to respond, there are some of us who even play music just to keep our cool. But when we learn to respond, automatically it spreads. The positivity spreads. You can just smile at a person, say hi to them, because we are all in the same situation. And that positivity spreads. So that is the difference between reacting and also responding. Like the example we had, Cristiano Ronaldo, he reacted. And here we have Nelson Mandela, he responded. Okay, so responding is something which, when we really work on self-management, responding really, really helps. Okay, so I want us to really think of what triggers us off, what gets us upset, and plan ahead of time how we're going to respond. Sometimes it means sometimes just being quiet. Wait for your emotions to calm down and then speak. Because sometimes when we are emotionally stressed and we are upset, we say so many things. So take some time to respond, and we can also work on that. Yeah. So that's the moment of truth where we react and we respond. Do we have any other examples? I'm sure if I ask all of you, you would definitely have other examples. Okay, so I just want you to think of some examples. Maybe during our discussion time, we can also share some of our examples. Yeah, so here we are. How can we actually improve our self-management? How can we actually improve our self-management? Do we have any ideas how we can work towards self-management? Any ideas how we can work on self-management? Do we have any tips? I'm sure you must have handled difficult situations. You must have handled difficult people. Do we have any tips on how do we handle ourselves? Look at the positive side. Yes, very good. Read books on this issue. Yes, read books. Recognizing triggers. Yes, you know, this is going to get me upset. Sometimes maybe a sentence which your spouse or your best friend says, and that could be a trigger. Yes, identify the triggers. Plan well before action. Yes, before the situation, plan ahead. Think of how you're going to respond. Yes. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it's very, very hard. Read, exercise, keep a diary. Yes, that's very good. When you have a journal, when you put down exactly what gets me upset. So identifying self-awareness helps you self-manage yourself also. Okay, so an effective self-manager is someone who shows evidence that they have this internal motivation. Okay, now you're like someone said, like Leslie put across, she said, read books, always be a lifelong learner. Okay, so that's the first step on how do we become self-managers, is being a lifelong learner. Okay, good managers love to learn and they look out for opportunities to do so. They keep learning, they keep working on it, right? Matthew, would you like? Yes. Okay. So there are generally people who are always ready to explore. They want to try out something new. Okay. A lifelong learner is always someone who is ready to learn, always ready to look out for opportunities. And that is so important for each one of us. I'd like to ask you, okay, be very honest. Nelson or all our leaders here are not going to keep track. Okay, so I want to ask you, how many of y'all are into reading books? How many of y'all like to learn, like to read books? How many of you watch TED Talks or podcasts? Do you watch on how to manage yourself? Can I see your hands going up? Okay, a few hands. Yeah. All right. So let's just keep that as one of our goals, okay? To start working on looking out for opportunities to learn. Okay. The next thing we have, or the second point we have, is about being an optimist. Like one of you pointed out, look at the positive side of things. Optimist, a person who's optimistic is always ready to look at the positive side of things, even when you are faced with adversity. Now, even when you go through failure, and to be able to move forward, okay, even when you're able to go forward, when things are not going too well. Now, when it talks about being an optimist, there's a quote by Winston Churchill: success is moving from failure to failure without your loss of enthusiasm. It's not easy. So for someone who's going through, negative situations again and again and again, especially, I'll give you an example from my husband's life. My husband is Jay, and after the pandemic, there was a whole shutdown, you know, their offices closed. So he went back into digital marketing. That didn't work. Real estate, that didn't work. But he just kept trying. Okay. So when you keep trying without losing the enthusiasm, so it's real estate, it's digital marketing, it's trading. And for some people who can just keep going on and on and on without losing your enthusiasm. And that is someone who is optimistic. So if you want to be a person who really manages yourself, you should have that desire to keep going forward. Enthusiasm is just finding the energy within you, finding that, with God's help, you can really see the positive things. Okay. So the next thing that we have here, we have about is another principle. And that principle goes on to say about integrity. Practicing integrity. Now, if I ask you, what is integrity? Have you heard the word integrity? People generally who have their emotions under control, they always think before they respond. Okay? They are people who are people of integrity. The reason being, I'll give you an example. If someone gets you upset and angry, okay, it's so easy to react and say a lot of things about them, or but a person of integrity would pause, think. Maybe you would say, think from the other person's point of view. You would focus on, this relationship is important. I really want to trust this person. I don't want to get upset with this person. Because you're a person of integrity, you focus on your principles. One, your principle could be, I want to honestly forgive this person. I want relationships which are really, really important for me. So integrity is someone who focuses on principles, and basically it is who you are when nobody's looking. Okay? Who you are when nobody is looking, when you have a set of principles that you have planned beforehand. For example, as most of y'all are working, I'm sure it's so easy when your boss is not around to relax and just, do things for the sake of doing. But a person of integrity is someone who is working not for the bosses around, but you're working for the audience of one. When you're working for God, it's so easy to have your principles. You will give your best no matter what. You will give your 100% no matter what. Whether my boss is watching me or whether I'm all alone, you will give it your best. And that is integrity. And the more you have that quality of having integrity, people will trust you more. Okay? You will gain the trust of your bosses. If you see, people who have integrity, who follow these examples, they are the ones who will climb up the ladder. And a leader, you may be leaders, you may be team leaders, you may be holding an important position. You will be able to identify people in your team who have this quality. No matter what happens, I will still be honest. I will still give my 100%. I will still give my best. I will still be efficient. I will still do my projects within that time frame. The next point is about being prepared. Okay. So the fourth point, how do we manage ourselves? I think you already told me in advance. Identify what triggers you and also decide how you're going to respond. I'm going to be prepared. So self-management is always showing up for meetings prepared. Self-management is always being prepared, to be prepared no matter what. Self-management is always, whenever you're questioned, you have already done your homework, you have the answers. And self-management is also how you can handle your emotions. I know this is going to get me upset. I know I'm going to say this. This is how I'm going to respond. This is how I'm going to keep quiet at this time. So self-management is all about being prepared. Yeah, so we will pause right now. I think we will go ahead and we will have our discussion time. So it's over to Victor and Nelson.
Thank you, Rachel and Leslie. 下面我们就进行一个分组，然后分组的那个讨论的题目 Victor 有发在我们的群里面。我会把我们的人分成3到4个人一组。来，我来尝试一下。分成6个组。
分好了是吧？
还有一些还没有加入。
哦，他们要打那个 join 才能。
对 ，Will 还有 Victoria，你们有找到组吗？你们是第5组。巴尼，你是第2组。
啊，对，我本来就是在等他们分好。好，我先分过去。
我看第5组只有本省一个人，我加入第5组和本省去沟通一下。Victoria，Hello， 你在吗？Hello，本省。哎，本省。嘿，你在上课吗？我可以听到，你可以听到我吗？
可以的，可以的。我现在一个线下会，我暂时开不了麦。
你可以交流吗？
我可以打字，
我听不清楚。
我可以打字。
可以打字啊，好啊。
那我们可以简单看一下它的大脑的遗传。
你觉得哪个更难呀？自我觉察、自我管理？
是我看这个聊天是发在所有人的这个全部的这个聊天当中的，对吗？
对对对，那个讨论话题第4期的那个。
那我就直接在咱们大会里面发了。
情感行为认知模型就是 ABC 模型，ABC 模型。
哎，本省能听见吗？本省，hello hello。
那这里我想去分析，
我要不用微信跟您聊天？我看
好，本省，
是跟
我
3聊。
我们加到那个俊英他们组吧，他们组也是2个人，我们组2个人，我们这样可能人会多一点。
在这项研究中，研究者完整运用了 CAC。
Hello， William，我们去俊英他们组吧。William 听得见吗？把你们拉过去。Hello，俊英，
嗨，
你看我一下叫这么多人来。
谢谢。因为 Willow 说他好像不在群组里面，所以他也不知道讨论什么话题，
哦
然后
，Willow，hello，我发给
Hello
Willow。
Hello，
太好了，太好了。好的，
那我们就来讨论一下。就第一个就是说，您觉得自我觉察还是自我管理哪个更难？
其实我觉得都难，但是如果是没有自我觉察的话，其实没办法做自我管理嘛。就是自我觉察还是第一步，就自己自我觉察之后，就是我常对有的事情的应激反应是什么？比如说，我可能在跟别人说话的时候，别人发一句话给我的时候，我会有一个第一时间的反应，然后，然后然后每次的时候，我会再去想这个事情的反应的时候，我可能第二次就不会给同样的反应，所以这个时候就是首先我是察觉到了说我自己会有一些。就是那种，就是类似像本能的一样的，就是对方的一句话里面可能一个词语就触发了我的一个即时反应，然后如果我在没有意识到的情况下，我就直接给了一个反馈，那可能就是相当于说没有完全理解对方整句话的意思或者背景，就是自己先有一个比较直接的反应吧。我觉得就是在这个基础上，你再去做自我管理的话，就是你会说是哦，比方说我会要求自己，然后在回复之前你要再多想个3秒钟，然后再读一遍这句话什么意思。就通常来讲的话，就是会发生在就是文字的对话里面，会这种情况会比较多一些。所以我觉得自我观察是第一步，然后你做好自我觉察之后，你才能去做自我管理。
我觉得也是自我觉察，因为自我管理比较靠的是那个叫什么，就是那种叫什么，像
自律，
然后好事儿啊，自律。但自我觉察可能有时候自己对自己认知是不清晰的，或者是比较片面的。这个有时候需要有一些自我的一个认识。威洛，你觉得呢？你觉得哪个更难？
自我管理，自我觉察我比较敏感， 我对
嗯
我自己那个脑袋里面闪过去的那些一
念头，
闪而过的那些东西念头
啊，
都非常的敏感。但是管理的话就，
嗯
我会看成是我的功课，然后又说啊又不及格，或是就一次一次
嗯
都在这个功课里面。自我管理对我来说要难一些。
，OK。
嗯，
本身他有发在聊天，他说是他也是自我管理，本身对。威廉能说话吗？威廉
可以可以。
，OK OK，
我也是觉得就是这个自我管理的这个难度比自我觉察要大一些。有的时候可能自我觉察会，嗯，就是比较清晰嘛，可能就觉得自己的感受或者自己的想法和意志，但是可能要控制这个，就相对来说，或者管理这些相对来说比较难一些，
嗯
有难度。
，OK，本身你可以发对大家那个聊天，我看你是给我私聊的，我念一下你发的。本身也是自我管理，他说就我个人来说，我很清楚自身问题所在，也可以剖析本质，不过自我管理的执行力比较困难。OK，所以我和俊英是偏自我觉察，然后Willow 本身和 威廉是觉得自我管理更难。OK，我们第二个问题嘛，就是说我们可以做些什么来真正认识自己，比如说寻求反馈和性格测试。我们还是按照刚才那个呃运营开始吧，对，聊一下怎么样真实认识自己。
好，那我来，嗯，我觉得是，就是说寻求反馈这点，因为本来之前的时候，我会比较很难做到说，就是主动去问别人说，你觉得我这个事情做的怎么样，或者说是因为我很难接受别人对我的评判，这是我自己很难接受的一点。然后，所以，我觉得自从意识到这个问题之后，我就开始会问，或者是说会更多的去观察，从别人的角度来看，就是说，然后我做的这个事情的情况是怎么样子的。所以，我就寻求反馈这点本身就是对自己的一个。就是要放下自己这个事情的话，本身来讲，对我来讲也是一个很大的功课。然后再一个就是说，你要能去找到合适的人去给你反馈，就是说，因为对方给你的反馈并不一定说是一个说怎么说你需要的反馈，或者说你认为比较公正客观的一个反馈，所以就是要去找到合适的人去给一个反馈。我觉得这是最直接最快的。性格测试那个，我觉得它太动态了吧，就我每次测可能都会有一些地方不一样。
嗯，因为我也觉得，就性格测试这个东西，嗯，
嗯。
它也比较不是很不是很不能够完全代表我吧。我觉得我会觉得人比那个测试那个东西会更加复杂，然后也是我如果是在一个高压环境的测试，还有我的一个状态哈，就是因为人生这个它是一个有高山有低谷嘛，我觉得我不同时期
嗯，
去做，可能结果也不一样，所以我觉得
对，想法会
寻求，
不一样。
对，我
嗯
觉得寻求反馈。也只能是部分了，因为别人的反馈，他也只是说从他的一个视角去给你一些反馈。那综合，比如说综
嗯
合一些人的反馈，在某一个点上，我觉得可以去采纳哈。但这个我觉得
嗯
都是术的方面，就是说，它
嗯
就是一个就是我觉得真正的认识自己，嗯，真正的了解自己啊，有时候我们就是要去做一些事情，可能让别人不舒服，或者怎么讲啊，就是说跳脱出这个他人的眼光，然后去做一些自己想做的事情啊，就然后去多一些探索，可能才会呃，我认为这个可以帮助到我去真实的了解自己啊，还有就是说从一些嗯 阅读啊、认知啊各个方面去了解，是一个动态的。对，威勒你呢？
我最近的话就是那个性格测试，还对我还是很有帮助的，就是那个 MBTI 那个。
嗯
然后我觉得认识我自己的话，其实是事情，这个事情发生了，然后我才发现我的这个反应是什么样子的，然后可能跟我以前这种设想的不太一样，才就是怎么说认识自己的本相吧。但我觉得人就是一个非常复杂的，就像那个洋葱一样，一层又一层，你都不知道什么时候你看到就是最核心的那个地方。所以我觉得这是个功课，这是一个就是 ongoing 的那种一个功
嗯
课，不是一下好像就可以就做到位的。
嗯，
嗯，OK。
其实
本身打，
还有一点，我觉得我补
君怡
充一下，
你说。
我觉得其实有时候就是说，写日记的话，其实是一个很好的方式，就是你自己坐在那里剖析自己的情绪，然后就一件事情来讲，你一层层的挖下去，我觉得这一点其实是有很大帮助的。
嗯，OK。本身我念一下，就是说，本身说自我觉察方面比较有天赋，不过自我觉察需要 trigger 来帮助重塑神经回路，从潜意识处根本上改变自己。一个个人屡试不爽的认知方法是专精化阅读，了解更多洞见和理论，就能更好洞悉自己。此外，如果有机会的话，要寻找一位非常了解自己又与自身性格不完全一致的镜子伙伴，来之得失做这本身的一个一个反馈。威廉，你这边呢？怎么样更好的认识自己？
怎么样？
真正认识自己，对，
再重复
做
一下呢？
些什么来真正认识自己？
嗯，之前就是也做了一些测试嘛，DSC、DSSC 还有 MBTI，还有我觉得就是有可能在很多的事情中去认识自己，去经历了很多的事情，然后可能这些事情对自己的一个反应，然后自己觉察出来以后就知道了。嗯。
嗯，OK。好，最后一个是我们可以做些什么来提高自我管理能力？比如说寻求导师，增强责任感，深入理解最深层的信念和目标。军英。
哦，我自己的话，就是平时自我管理能力设定，就是说给自己安排固定的，就是有一个就是比方说会安排短期的或者长期的课程是固定点位的，或者说给自己设定目标是那种就是比方说我3个月之内要做什么，6个月之内做什么，然后我1年之后要做什么，就有点像在后面的时间上面打钉子，这样子的话，我就可以至少保证自己不偏离自己的路太多，这样子。
这个目标主要是外在还是就是内在的那种使命，还是说偏外在的？嗯，
你说
成就。
你是说就是追求个人就是工作成绩是吧？其实我觉得很多时候其实不是在追求个工作成就，然后我如果是说我的目标如果是这个的话，那我可能现在的情况会不一样，然后我可能更多的去追求一种就是说你怎么样自己平衡吧。就是
嗯
其实是追求一种自己平衡，就是说，其实是追求了自己在将来的生活当中有一点，就是那种我大概知道我到那个时候会是一个什么样的状态的一个这种感觉。
嗯，OK。
嗯
对我的话，我看我做什么提高自我管理？我觉得就是说，呃，就是了解自己， 就是我觉得我对我自我觉察还是需要下点功夫。那现在的工作也花了我比较多的时间嘛，但是这个工作背后的那个 why，就是更深层的那个 purpose，这个东西，我在去年年初有想了3个词哈，就是global sharing，还有 relationship。那但是我现在工作并没有连接上我这个想做的这3个事情，但是事情是会随着时间会变化的嘛哈，所以我可能要不断的去呃探索哈，像包括这个领导力课程哈，它在我工作之余，我可以有大家可以建立关系，可以去分享，可以有一些 global 的这种链接啊，我就觉得是再往再引发我们的些思考哈，去呃自我觉察，那再了解到我这一生的这个信念，或者叫倒推回来哈，从墓志铭的角度，我希望我的墓碑上被写下一个什么哈，那一定不会是一个优秀员工啊，一定不会是一个什么公司的怎么 CEO 或者高层，一定不会是这些，一定是会和关系相关的，一定会是和关系相关的啊，一定是和人和 relation 相关的。嗯，好，那个 Willow 你这边呢？
提高自我管理啊，
嗯
导师，寻找导师，对我比较喜欢和，就是那种思想啊、见解啊都比较深刻，比较就很有又有深度又有宽度的人去交谈。一个是这个，然后就可以发现我自己，给我一些启发。一个是这个，增强责任感，这个也有的，然后还有向内去思考，这个我觉得都有。他这里举到的例子都有。还有就是我自己也经常写一些这个 to do list 这样的，就这周做什么，这个月做什么，有一个规划，这个也有，
嗯，对，Willow 可以，
就这样。
对我们也有那种和导师那种1对1哈，就是说，对，因为他每一次导师都会有那种1对1的，这你可以找 Victor 了解一下，你应该可以去和导师去做一个更深度的一些交流。好，本省发的我
好，
念一下，就是呃跟他 OK，他打的是运用拆商，清晰列出自身问题，链条化分析问题出现的根本原因，根据问题构成要素，从最细微处针对性解决，列出最小的可执行步骤，提高开启自我改变的动力。通过阅读、箭头实践、箭头反馈反思、箭头升华优化、箭头再阅读的模型，不断提高自我管理能力。啊，这个本省确实，本省很有这个，拆解的很那个很细，一看就是很好执行了。啊，威廉，Hello，
还有
对你有什么方法可以分享？
如何提
就是
高自我的管理哈？
对对对，
嗯，就是很多时候，第一个我觉得先是要从心力开始吧。很多时候其实外在的，很多的这种一些行为果效，可能都是由这种内心，由我们的这种价值观意识或者说潜意识来决定的。很多时候可能你下意识的做了一些决定或者一些这种呃，可能就是因为我们的内心的或者说没有被觉察的一种潜意识所造成的。对，所以说其实可能第一个可能去寻找一些有智慧的人，或者说一些呃 信息导师，可以进行一些咨询，可以说，哎，我这里面是不是有一些盲点我可能是不是还有哪些没有考虑得到的，或者我哪些可能就是说也是靠自己这种意志在做的部分，或者说只是靠自己努力去在这个部分可能没有思考的完全的部分，可能在这一块去不断的拓展，然后再进行相关的一些实践嘛。所以说我觉得它也是一个路径，所以总的来说是一种路径。同时呢，也不要对自己过于的这种就是苛刻，或者说定了一个特别太高的一种目标，或者完美主义的一种太过于要求，太严的一种要求吧。但我觉得可能就是说，能够每天进步一点就是一种成就或者一种对自我的一种鼓励吧。
嗯，对，我觉得就是如果太靠那种自律性，或者是逼着自己去做一个事情，可能坚持1个月突击半年1年，可能长久以来去保持这样的自律，对我来讲，我很难做到。而且而且我如果做到了哈，那我是不是也期待有相应的，比如说外在的 achievement 去匹配或者那如果说我这个动力是就像威廉讲说是从心出发的话，那我可以停一停，我可以蓄力我可以接着，只要我这个方向是没变的这个方向没变的，可以用一生去完成可能就会在人生不同的季节的时候能够嗯顺应那个季节，但是又保持这个方向。嗯，不要追求完美主义。
对。
所以我觉得自我觉察对我来说有一个很
或者说很多一种要求过高的一种主义，或者说一种呃对我们本身而言来说，本来可能就是一种遥不可及的做不到的部分。当可能把这种做不到的部分强压在自己身上的时候，反而是一种枷锁或者一种压力。而其实当自我觉察在一种呃按照我们自己内心的这种力量来走的时候，可能反而会呃相对来说可能会走得更远。会不会是这样的一种
对，我有感受到，就是对，因为每个人都不一样嘛我们的能力体力天赋都不一样，找到那条适合我们自己的那个道路。OK，好吧，谢谢大家分享，我们时间也差不多，就回到那个主会场。
其实我觉得，
俊英，你说。
其实我觉得自我觉察里面有一点很重要的就是允许所有发生的事情，所以我觉得这个的话，就是你在自我觉察的时候，你允许所有在你生活当中发生的事情，就包括我们刚刚说的说你执行计划的时候出现了偏差，然后你再回顾说你自己是不是走在正确的道路上，或者说你之前定的计划你要不要持续下去。其实这个时候你自我觉察的话，其实在这个时候会有很大的帮助，说你就是会允许。然后你随时调整。对我来说是这样子。
对，刚刚那个老师他说了一句，应该是丘吉尔他说 Success is moving from failure to failure without
losing
without losing the enthusiasm， 就是从失败到失败当中，并且保持这个热情，这个就是成功。 没有人能一直成功，一直胜利啊。
是。
好，谢谢大家，我们回到那个会场，离开讨论组。
好的。
我们再等一下，还有4位还在分组讨论中，应该快结束了。看来他们组应该讨论的比较，有比较多的话题。都回来了。OK。
Sorry, Naftali, we got kicked out.
好，我们每个组要不请一位代表来快速分享一下你们讨论的一些感受，好不好？Laftani，我看你们组讨论得很热烈啊，要不你代表分享一下。
Okay, no problem. Our team discussing of self-manager and each other. We're talking about which book is the usable for my life or working or business. I introduced this book to Leslie and Mike because this book is my brother in church. He introduced this book to me. So we're talking about this book and for example, if Jesus is the boss, what did Jesus do? And we're talking about guarantee of love and more than each other.
OK，你们讨论是书是吧？
对，我们聊了包括自我管理，然后包括说针对这本书的一些读后感，还有就是我们的一些工作。哦，in at the last, Miss Leslie asking which person uh is in my working. I want to say he is my teacher. He is the Zhejiang China Mobile Province, the big boss. When I was young, he found me and leader me in working. That's all.
好，
That's all.
谢谢
让麦克来
Naftali。
吧吧。Sorry.
OK，Kira，你们组是第几组？
我也不知道第几组哎。
你可以分享一下吗？你们
我分享吗？Shelly，
对
你要不要
或
上一
Shelly
你讲的比较多。
那个 Kalen 你分享吧，我觉得我好像都在说的多了。I think you always listen, so you are a good listener. You might get a good conclusion.
You put a lot of pressure on me. Okay. Thank you, everyone. I'll share something our group discussion as a summary. For the first topic, about the self-awareness and management, which one is harder? We basically think that self-awareness is much harder than self-management because the self-awareness is the core and basis of the self-management. We think that all self-management is based on the shortcoming and the shortcoming and the strengths that we have dig out through ourselves. So basically the awareness is the first step to the following all the management goals, etc. And this for the second topic, what we can do to truly know ourselves. I think the first thing we need to do is linked to the first topic, is self-awareness, knowing what we need, what our shortcomings and strengths is, by really analyze our growing up environment, or seeking for the feedback from our friends, or the employees or colleague who work with us, to give feedback about what kind of person that I am, to give myself a overall or comprehensive view about what myself is, what person I am, what kind of person I am. And that's a basic line to understand ourselves. After that, I think seeking for a mentor which has a higher level personality or management skills, to seeking for his or her further advice is quite important for the next level growing up. And after that, we might improve based on the mentor's advice, and then improve and knowing better about after we adopt those action, and to keep change, and then know ourselves better, to and improve ourselves at the same time. For the third question, we think that find mentors, it might help us improve our self-management skills. But we first need to identify the shortcoming and find a corresponding solution to our shortcoming, and then come up with those solutions with the mentors would help us to improve the self-management skills. That's all. My summaries has been done. John.
谢谢 Keenan。Bonnie，我们先继续吧。
Okay, now Rachel, on to you for social awareness.
All right. Okay, I really hope you had, from what I heard and the discussion that you all were having, it seemed like you really enjoyed your talking, and we could have actually stopped right now and just allowed you to speak a lot more. Thank you so much for being, for involving in the discussion. We are looking at the third element of emotional quotient. The first two deals with how you lead yourself. The third one goes on to how do you lead others, and it's called social awareness. Now, when it comes to social awareness, we are in a world where we are with people. It's not just us. We know how to manage ourselves. We know how to be aware, but how do we deal with others? How do we lead others? And how do we relate with others? So what we're going to do right now is basically ask ourselves, what exactly is social awareness? Okay. what exactly is social awareness? When we say social awareness, what does it really mean? Okay. Now, we had a group discussion. Okay. While we had this group discussion, we also had a lot of listening to do. So social awareness here is not just about talking, responding. It's also about listening, but listening to an extent where you are focusing on listening to understand, not just to respond and reply and just get on, but it's to listen with your eyes and your ears and really understand what they're going through. That is social awareness. So this is a very, very, very challenging competency for most of us, because most of us listen. We listen not just with our eyes, but with our ears. And when you're able to understand other people, understand how the other people's emotions are, when you understand their emotions, that's exactly how it is. When you are able to assess, able to judge, able to pay attention to the others, that is called social awareness. The second point says caring for others. Okay, there is a big difference when you actually care from the heart and when you care from just your mouth and where it's superficial. So that is just like sympathy. Yeah, I understand. I know what you're going through. We're all very good with words. But when we actually care, when we empathize, when we really understand their emotions, we show care for them because we are thinking from, or we get into the shoes of another person. So as a team leader, as a boss, it's easy to say, yes, these are the deadlines. Why didn't you do it? But if you really get to their level and understand, pay attention to what exactly they're going through, that is the difference. Empathizing. It is not just, just giving a response, not just an emotional response, but where you listen with your eyes, listen with your ears, and you really build a very strong relationship. And that is the key. That is the hallmark of, being in the moment. Now, for example, when my child was very small, as mothers, we are multitasking. You're tying your child's shoelace, you're listening to their story, you're trying to get something else done. The older child is asking you things, and what does the child do? The child turns your face and says, look at me, listen to me with your eyes. Okay, and that is exactly what happens. Okay, when we are focusing completely on them, the picture says here exactly what happens. Many times we are just so caught up with our phones, our extra work, and we're not paying attention, or we're looking at the watch. So even a child, even as young as a child, maybe a 2-year-old or even younger, they can make out when you're actually listening from the heart. So for moms who have, 1 or 2 children, I'm sure you will understand exactly what it is to listen, live in the moment. It's not easy. It is challenging. But if we practice this, it really helps us at home. It helps us with our family members. It helps us in our workplace to live in the moment, to show empathy, okay, to show care, and to also listen with your eyes. So social awareness, these are the key words. Now, also, when we talk about social awareness, it's very easy for us to identify people because they are people who, when you talk to them, you'll know this person is a person who's socially aware because they understand, they get to your emotions, they genuinely care. Okay, so the easiest way to go for it is to be able to identify people, and people should also identify, yes, this person is a person who really genuinely cares. Okay, even as they interact with you, they will be able to identify that you're someone who is aware of not just your emotions, but you're aware of the other person's emotions. And that is so important. That is very, very important to identify the other person's emotions, understand. So when you start off your interactions with anyone else, trust me, people will know. As a leader, people will know if you're a caring person, if you're a genuinely caring person. People will know. When you are with family members, they will know. There are some people who stand out as very caring and very emotionally aware, someone who identifies. I'm sure in your family get-togethers, there will always be that one person who comes and talks to you. Are you doing okay? And sometimes just that small question, are you doing okay? Someone who can see beyond, who can understand beyond, who are people who listen not just with their eyes, but with their ears and their eyes. Okay, that is so important when you get to the why. Yeah, next. Yeah, so coming to the why, that exactly is what we do when we focus on, what are the emotions that you go through. Okay, it's not easy to pick out everyone's emotions, but it will come with practice. Start working on it. Start being a person who is socially aware. Start listening to people more. Start identifying what they're going through, and it will come with practice. It's not easy for most of us. It is how we work on it. So now we're jumping straight into how can we really grow our social awareness? How can we really work on being socially aware? Okay, what are some of the tips that we have on becoming social awareness? I'm sure in your discussion groups, most of y'all came up with answers, right? The first one is be an effective coach. Some of y'all said find a mentor. Okay, so when you're talking about how do you build it, how do you work on becoming a socially aware person, is be an effective coach. Now, when we talk about emotions, okay, when we are trying to understand, we are not, when we say be aware of people, don't just, it's not about pleasing them, making sure they're happy, just being around. It's not that. It's about basically, it is a leader who helps them to be an effective coach for their own organization. So show up. Okay, so one way it shows up in leaders is it helps them, you become an effective coach, okay, for your organization. So it also, this particular quality will help you get the top talent in your organization. If you're a person who understands emotion, you will be able to identify people and take them up. So be an effective coach is the first step. The next step is about how we need to practice listening. Okay, it's very, very important to practice listening. Now, like we said, like how I gave you that example, a young child will know if you're really genuinely listening. At the same time, it is a quality which is very, very powerful. Okay, it's a powerful display of awareness. One is asking good questions. And also, when you ask questions which are beyond the superficial, which is, just the top level. Go beyond that. Ask very good questions. And this is something which we need to practice, asking good questions. When you listen to other people, ask good questions about their emotions. Also, actively listen. And a very good way of actively listening is, of course, your body language, where you nod your head and say yes, but also repeating certain things back. So whatever you hear, repeating, clarifying, that really helps. Okay, when you show that respect to others, it really shows that you care for them. I'll give you an example of a student in my class. Now, I had this student who had an issue. He would not come to college. And when we called the parents and we talked to him and asked the parents, why isn't he showing up? They said, we'll try, ma'am. We really don't know. So he came to college, and every time he came to college, he was so disinterested. Okay, so I think there's a power cut. You'll have to give me some time. So I'll be speaking from the dark. Okay, so we had this boy.
No.
No problem. I can carry on. You can hear me, right? I can give you a...
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you fine. Go ahead.
Yes.
I can use my phone to show you my face. It will come on in a few minutes. Okay, so here we had this boy who would sit in class, and he would come and sit at the back bench. I said, come because you need your attendance. He would sleep in class. And finally, I spoke to him and I just said, can you tell me, how are you? What are you going through? And he just talked. He said, ma'am, I'm not able to sleep at home. I'm not getting a good night's sleep. So I feel very sleepy in class. I said, it's fine, no problem. Just come to class. Let's see what happens. So he came for a day or two. I allowed him to sleep. I just would listen to him. At the end of the class, I would just talk to him, asking him, did he eat? I would not ask him about why aren't you paying attention? I would just get him to talk. And as I spoke to him, I understood that he is a dancer. He loved dancing. So for one of our programs, I told him, could you lead in the dance? And when I asked him that question, he was so excited. he got a team together from a person who was just quiet and just sitting in class. He got a whole team together. He performed on the stage, and that was the last day I had trouble with his attendance. He would come. It's only because I just listened to him, and that really helps. When you just listen to him, just give him space without judging. That is very, very important. Without passing judgments, without, making it, oh, you're a good for nothing boy. It's so easy to do that and just leave him. Okay, let him be here. But just listening, identifying what you're good at, that really helped. And finally, that boy, he became the cultural secretary of my college, which had 7,000 students. He also later came to work with me in the Office of Student Affairs. And he became a person who would identify people who were not, who were not active. And that really made a difference. So listening really helps. You never know who's going to turn around. You never know whose life you're going to impact. So that really made a difference. It really helped. And that is one example I can give you. The next point is about, the third point goes on to talk about working across cultures. Now, if you look at this group, we have, I think we have Americans, we have Chinese, Indians, and I think with Matthew Bunny, who has both the cultures, the Chinese culture as well as the American culture, so strong, he can get and mix around anywhere. And at the same time, here we are talking about working across cultures is inclusion, okay? Understanding people from their points of view, taking time to be sensitive, understanding the cultural differences. It's so important to understand what are the differences. It's so important to listen and pay attention to their culture. All right. So much of what we need to do is, we could have, like what we're doing right now is just having a session, understanding social awareness. Yeah. The next thing is about noticing needs. When we notice needs of people, and the best way to do it is, go out of your way to volunteer. And that is a very good quality to have. Yeah. Another thing we can do, the next slide just focuses and tells us what we shouldn't do. What we shouldn't do is to avoid what these people are doing. Very, very common in family get-togethers. The whole family is there and everyone's doing what they want. So this is something which we should avoid. If we want to listen actively, if we want to really show genuine care, this is what we need to avoid. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I'll hand it over to Matthew.
Rachel, you're an absolute delight. Can't tell you how much I love hearing your personal stories. They're so wonderful. And I know that the whole team must feel the same way that I do. I'm not saying anything out of turn that they don't feel too. So well done, you. We're going to wrap this up. You're so welcome. We're going to wrap this up on relationship management, which is the fourth and final element of EQ. So if we look at relationship management, it's really about our social skills. And our social skills are the culmination of all of these other dimensions. Social skills are really talking about the ability to manage relationships, to build networks. It's to find common ground, to build rapport for a mutual benefit. And you're going to see that on the next slide. 4 key things that relationship management gives you. So that's a mutual benefit because you're building these relationships and networks. It's also giving you influence because this is a relationship that it's more than friendliness. It's a relationship with a purpose. It helps you move people in the direction that you desire, using your influencing skills, using your ability to inspire people, not just tell them what to do, but to inspire them to go further. And that was something we talked about in our group discussion with Naftali and with Mike, is how do you inspire people to take on the actually live up to the responsibilities that they've said that they would do. And it can be hard, but one of the ways that you do it is being transparent. And that's another thing we talked about. someone's struggling, to be able to say to them, hey, I see you're struggling. How can I help you? What is, how can I be a better leader to help you in this situation? To be real. You can even explain a situation that you were in where you weren't able to do what you're asking them to do, but you learned. It's being transparent. People are attracted to authenticity. That's something we can thank our younger generations for bringing to the table, and just being out there and saying, hey, this is where we are right now. This is how I'm feeling, and this is who I am, and this is what I bring to the table. However, when you understand and manage your own emotions, and you're effective at perceiving how other people are feeling, you have the very foundation you need to be extremely effective in your social skills. Now, as we talked a couple of times so far, personality tests are going to be a great way to improve your relationship management. So whether you go through DISC, Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, it can help you improve the team's understanding of one another. And it can be a really fun team building session. We've done these before, where in a DISC training of leaders, C-suite leaders, and we had them build stacks of cups, but they could only do it with string. And it was fun to see how they had to learn to work together, leveraging each other's personality style so that they would be able to achieve a task. Now, when it comes to growing those social skills, you're able to lead teams, you're able to manage change. Change is very, very difficult for a lot of people. Can you see when someone's struggling with change? If you do, you can help them manage that. When there's conflict, inevitably there's going to be conflict. We're humans. We do not agree on everything. But how do you help people debate and talk to resolve that conflict? Not everybody may be happy, but you come up with a peaceful resolution. And then the final thing is that you can practice, and you have to practice. If you don't practice, you're never going to learn the skills. So here's the final question. Can your EQ be improved? Well, yeah, of course it can, but you've got to make a personal commitment to do it. So your emotional intelligence skills are centered in the limbic region of your brain, your feelings, your behaviors, your impulses. And as we've talked, it's hard to control those impulses sometimes, but that's where you're going to have to commit to working on it, because you just can't go through a training and all of a sudden it's fixed. You've got to do the work. So you have to repeatedly practice these new behaviors that we're talking about, whether it's stop and think before you speak. You've got to train your brain to do these new things. Neuroscience tells us that the brain is plastic. It learns, it moves. Well, here's the interesting thing. If you do the same behavior over and over again, you're creating a super highway in your brain from one thing to another. You need to rewire that. Stopping and thinking is going to help you do that, but it takes desire and it takes a full commitment to make that change. So the training is not going to be your standard old training. You're going to be doing this, you're on your own. It does create time, a serious commitment. It's going to take you time and it's going to take you experience. Plus, you're going to need coaches and mentors. So one of the first things you can do is start taking a journal. And maybe you want to work on being aware of when you get angry. So you just take a journal and say, when I get angry, and you write, today, it happened at 9:30 when this person did that. Yesterday, it happened at 4 o'clock when someone did that. And you begin to record what your triggers are so that you can then look at overcoming what those triggers are and putting things back into motion. I will tell you that when you look at the idea of practicing, let me give you an example of how you can do this. You want to be able to read what's going on through somebody's mind, if you can. And sometimes body language tells you the story that you need to hear. So my husband and I play a game. He's really good at it. He's really funny. I'm not. as good at it as he is. But we'll be in an airport and we'll be waiting to get on a plane. And he'll start telling me what the people are thinking as they go by. So if he sees some, some woman running really hard and she's got a look of anxiety on her face, he'll tell me what she's saying. She's saying, oh my gosh, if I miss this flight, I am going to be in so much trouble. I'm not going to make it home for my kid's birthday party, blah, 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 blah. So we begin to tie in what we're seeing with what somebody may be saying in our brain. It's a fun way to practice learning what people are thinking. And if you do it with somebody, you get different perspectives and it can help fine tune your social awareness. So here's what I want you to do. The last thing I want you to do is to look at where you personally have an opportunity to grow. So write down 1 to 2 things that you do best. And it might be, I'm very self-aware, or I'm very socially aware. I'm really great at relationships. Write down 1 to 2 things that you do really, really well, because that's going to build your foundation of confidence to move forward. The second thing is to write 1 or 2 things you need to improve. And that's what you're going to work on improving. You may be looking at this presentation thinking, I don't know where to begin. I have way too many things that I've got to work on. I don't have time for this. It's going to take 20 years for me to get there. It won't. But how do you eat an elephant? 1 bite at a time. So you're going to take this challenge 1 bit at a time and help you get through this. All right. So if we want to move on to the next slide, we'll ask if there are any questions that we can answer for you about the assignment, about any of the information that's been covered, anything that is on your mind or heart that you want to talk about. We would love to hear. So please jot your questions in the chat.
大家可以在那个聊天打一下想问的问题。中文，打中文、英文都可以哈。
No questions, no questions. Okay, so you ready for the test? I'm teasing. No test. No test. So it looks like we have a couple minutes before, I'm assuming, Matthew, you'll wrap this up and take us home. But I want to call out one thing for you all. I want you to be aware of something that happened during this presentation. I hope you felt we were prepared, because a lot of preparation goes into planning these things and putting them together. We divide out who's going to do what section, etc. And all the notes are in mine. I'm sure all the notes are in Rachel's as well. And during one part of the earlier part of the presentation, there was a note that fell off of my presentation. And that note said, transition to Rachel. And I just kept going until I reached my second note, which said transition to Rachel, which was in the wrong place. So what happened is that I actually took over part of Rachel's and then forced her to take over part of mine. But I'll bet you didn't notice, because this woman was so prepared that she was able to turn on a dime and deliver such a wonderful presentation. So I just want to share with you that even in live moments where you've really worked hard, things go wrong. And I'm so sorry that I did that to Rachel.
No
and at the same
problem
time,
at all.
I'm so glad I did because I learned so much. So just wanted to call that out and just let you guys see that, hey, you know, it happens and we can move forward, and often we're blessed from it. So thank you, Rachel.
No problem at all. I was telling Matthew, no problem. Let her keep going. No problem. I can just carry on whenever. But I was like, okay, I'll just do the next part. But I really enjoyed the whole time. And listening to you also is great. And the audience, I mean, I really like the group chat discussion, our breakout rooms. The discussions were really nice. So thank you so much. Yeah.
Well, on behalf of everyone here in China, everyone participating tonight, and then there will be a lot more also watching the recording as well, because we're coming right out of a holiday right now. I just want to say thank you to all of you guys. One of the things that I really love about speaking with GLP, with this organization, is just getting to hear from all the other speakers. I like standing in front and I like talking, but I also just love hearing from others, because I get to hear different perspectives, and I get to hear some of the same content that I may have taught 10 or 20 times from someone else. And it's a beautiful and wonderful thing to be able to get to garnish more information from you guys. So I really do appreciate that. And I thank you guys so much for being willing to. Leslie, I know it's very early in the morning there for you. And Rachel, I know you just finished a very long day of work, but you guys are both willing to come and to share your time with us. And so we just really want to say thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and welcome you back anytime that you're willing and able to share with us. And we hope that we'll also, as students and participants, learn what you've shared with us from your stories, and then also move forward in our own leadership roles going forward. So thank you guys so much. John, I'll hand it back to you to do a quick close with the rest of the group. And I guess we will see, some people have signed up already for mentoring for this week. For those of you who are just doing team meetings or offline, you'll see each other there. Otherwise, we'll see you online again next month. John?
好，谢谢 Bonnie，谢谢 Leslie and Rachel。大家可以开一下摄像头吗？我们Laftani 可以帮我们拍张照吗？
Thank you.
We're going to take a picture, a group photo.
Oh, that's nice.